In this section, I am going to speak on Thomas Merton. Thomas Merton's autobiography, known as the Seven Storey Mountain, is one of the monumental books of our time. When it was published, every day 2,000 copies were sold, and within a year 300,000 copies were sold. So from that itself, one can gather how profound was the influence of Thomas Merton on the minds of the people of this age. He was born in France, then moved to England, then came back to the United States. When he came to the United States, he was an orphan. His father died when he was in England, his mother died when he was in France, and he had a very riotous young life. When he was at Cambridge, he was like any other modern riotous youngster, had no principles, no values, no faith. But from that, he made a great movement towards a life of sacrifice, a life of devotion, a life of faith. The Seven Storey Mountain describes all the things that have happened in his life, and also it gives the earnings, the desire that he has got for union with God. One of the beautiful statements made in this Seven Storey Mountain is this statement which describes the presence of God in our human life. There is not a flower that opens, not a seed that falls into the ground, and not an ear of wheat that nods on the end of its stalk in the wind, that does not preach and proclaim the greatness and the mercy of God to the whole world. There is not an act of kindness or generosity, not an act of sacrifice done, that does not sing hymns to God. All these things, all creatures, every graceful movement, every ordered act of the human will, all are sent to us as prophets from God. What a beautiful way of telling us that everything that we experience in our life is indicative of God's presence, that we can feel the presence of God through every flower, every human act of generosity, through every encounter that we experience in our lives with other people. Merton also criticizes the materialistic spirit of the age whose product he has been. He says, I saw clearly enough that I was the product of my times, my society and my class. We live in a society whose whole policy is to excite every nerve in the human body and keep it at the highest pitch of artificial tension, to strain every human desire to the limit, and to create as many new desires and synthetic passions as possible. And when the time came for him to accept the Lord, he asked for a baptism from a Jesuit priest, became a Catholic, then he wanted to become a priest. He went to the Trappist order to become a monk of that order. He led a life of great solitude and contemplation. From there, he began to write, and his writings began to influence and persuade the minds of the people all over the world. He has become one of the greatest spiritual giants of the 20th century.